Hey guys, we are officially pre-recorded. This is episode 7, and I'm here with my good friend Shane Rosengrind Picker. How are you doing today, Shane?
Good man. How are you doing? How's
Oh,
the
I'm doing
weather?
well. It's the weekend. I know we're trying to get the cameras adjusted, technical difficulties. So today, our topic of our video is going to be why do 60% of small businesses fail, right? Because we touched on that a little bit last week. And if you guys don't know, out of the small businesses that exist, maybe 30% of the small businesses are losing money. Then there's 30% of the businesses that are breaking even, and then there's another 40% of people that are actually making money. So basically, the reason people start a business in the first place is to be profitable. So if you're not in the green, you're not in the black, and you're not profitable, to me, that means you fall on the 60% of small businesses that are failing. So what's what we're going to talk about a little bit about is why do 60% of small businesses fail? So that's going to be our topic of our video. If you guys see me looking down during the video, I have notes that I wrote for the video, and we're pulling this data from the Chamber of Commerce. So I will link it down below in the video if you want to do your homework and read it for yourself. So Shane, what do you think about our topic today? Do you think we're going to have a good show? We're going to have a good topic today, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. I think it's there's a lot of similarities to brick and mortar and e-commerce, but then there's I think more on the other hand, I think there's a lot of differences that makes them potentially successful, potentially not successful. So
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of stuff that you don't actually have to look into with e-commerce, and we can get into that when we start talking about the main topic.
All right, so cool. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is what is a small business, right? So what puts you in that category of being in a small business? So according to the Chamber of Commerce, if you have 500 employees or less, you're considered a small business. So that's how you know, like, am I a big business? Am I a small business? Am I a sole proprietor? Am I self-employed? Basically, that's the way it's categorized. Either once you cross this threshold and you have more than 500 employees, you're no longer considered a small business. If you have 500 employees or less, you're considered a small business. So I'm kind of reading off my notes I got for today. So you agree with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Now, what percentage do you think, Shane, out of all the businesses that we have in the country, what percentage do you think is considered small business? Like, if you had to guess.
Oh, it just depends because there's a lot of businesses in this country. I would say, off the top of my head, without looking at the website, probably less than 20%. That's what I would say. Maybe less than 30. It's probably 30 or less, maybe.
Well, Shane, we're talking about small businesses. This counts for everybody. This includes like nail
Yeah,
salons, barber shops, tire change places, oil change
probably a lot.
places.
Then I would say it's probably close to 80 or 90% talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the numbers that I have is 99.9% of small businesses are going to be they're going to be businesses that have 500 employees or less, right? Now,
Mhm.
what percentage of the people do you think out across the country, right? Everybody that's employed that has a job, how many of them do you think work for major corporations versus how many people do you think work for small businesses, right?
Oh, wait. I mean, I would say, realistically, I really don't know. But if I had to really think, I would say that it's probably pretty split 50-50.
Right.
Um,
So the number I have is 49%. Right here is
mm,
49% of
mm,
all people that have jobs. So almost 50%, right down the
mm,
middle, are people that work for small businesses. And the other half of the people either work for the government or, that means that they work for big corporations like Coca-Cola or
mm.
General Electric or something like that, right?
Yep.
So now this is the main topic of our video today, and what we're talking about is why do you think what is the number one reason that you think that small businesses fail? Okay, so what's the number one reason? Well, someone maybe they get excited and they're like, man, I'm going to open up a bakery, I'm going to open up this coffee shop, I'm going to open up this nail salon. What's the number one reason why do you think people fail from when they open up their small business? What's the number one reason?
Well, I mean, realistically, if they're closing, then they just don't have the cash flow coming in that's the reason. Cash flow.
Right. So the number one answer that they have was lack of funds. So that means they don't have enough customers, lack of sales, they're not making enough money. Number two was poor planning. Maybe they didn't plan everything out. And number three was bad management. So as you can see, the number one reason isn't that maybe they didn't plan ahead, or maybe it was a mom and pop organization and they just they had bad management. Number one reason was they just didn't have customers. So that's why they say in small business, everything's about location, 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 right? So if you're a brick and mortar company and you're opening up a coffee shop, or you're opening up a brick and mortar store, if you don't have a good location, you don't have enough foot traffic, you don't have enough customers, you're not generating enough sales, you can't stay in business. You have overhead expenses you have to pay. And so that's the number one reason that they have, is that they're like, okay, I have to pay my employee's salary, I have to pay my water, I have to pay my electric, I have to pay my rent, we have to pay the security alarm system, we have to pay our cable internet connection. So you have all these overhead expenses, and if you're not bringing in enough cash flow, you're not making enough sales, it's hard to keep your head above water, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that stuff can drown you if you don't be careful.
Okay. So now we talked about how many businesses are actually profitable. Like we said, there's only 40% of all the businesses are actually profitable. So keep that in mind, guys. If you drive past 100 small businesses, 60% of them are not profitable. They're either businesses that are just barely breaking even, or they're losing money, right?
Well, and I think a lot of people, I mean, there's a lot of business models out there where, they kind of rob Peter to pay Paul. Like, they're not profitable, but they live off loans, and you can only do that for so long. I mean, you got to understand, like, that is that is like the 90s. I call it, my special word for that is the 90s department store model.
Right. And so what would you guess, because Shane didn't get a chance to read over my show notes for today. Shane, what would you guess is the average median income of a small business owner? Just take a guess of what it is.
35,000, 30,000, maybe if that.
50 grand. Yeah. So it's right around $1,000 a week. And that's if they're profitable, right? So that's like the median. That's not, there are some people that's making 80 or 100 grand a year, and there's some people that's doing 30. And then there's a lot of people, like we said, 30% of the people that are losing money. You've got the 30% bracket of people that are making money. But of the people that are profitable and are making money, because you can't count people that are negative. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So, but of the people that have a small business that is profitable, that is making money, the average median salary is only 50 grand a year. So that's really not a ton. So it's definitely doable. Now, there's one more statistic of things that I wrote down in my notes that I wanted to talk about real quick. It is, what percentage of small business owners work from home? What do you think that is? If you're a small business owner, what percentage of the people do you think, Shane, are people that work from home, from their office from home?
Oh, I'd say probably 60%.
The statistic I have is 52%. So this was like in 28. This was before the lockdown. This was in 2018, 2019 numbers. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about real quick, because I wanted to talk a little bit of parallels today. As first of all, the first number one thing, of course, they say the number one statistic reason why people fail is not having money. But I think the biggest issue is that people are not everybody's made to be an entrepreneur. There's a lot of people they can go show up to work, punch a time clock in at 9 a.m., they have their lunch break at noon and go home at 5, and they're programmed. They're cool with that. They can do that. And if you've done that for 10 to 15, 20 years, and now all of a sudden you're freestyling it and you're doing it on your own, you don't realize all the work that goes into it, because you don't have everything is not structured and laid out for you,
Well, and here's the thing. Here's the other thing I want to say is, like, I worked in retail for 10 years. In retail management, and a lot of that time, some of the time was in corporate, some of it wasn't. But I can tell you right now, if you look at any small business owner and they say, hey, I can't, I'm not making money, I may have to close, go look at their Yelp reviews. They're probably going to be really bad, because most small businesses, the reason they close is either A, customer service is bad, or B, they just don't care about their customers. If you look at the Yelp reviews, a lot of businesses that close, it'll tell you in the Google reviews or in the Yelp reviews pretty much why they close.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, the number one reason is them not having funding, and that just means they don't have enough customers and they're not making enough sales. You may have a great marketing team, you may have a great cashier, you may have a great marketing, advertising, and all this stuff. But if you don't have customers and you don't have constant cash flow coming in, and you have expenses going out the door, it's hard to keep your head above water. Because, and then another thing is that we didn't talk about yet is a lot of these small business owners, Shane, they start out in the red. They start off getting financing or getting a loan. So
Right.
not only are you paying for your own employees, not only are you paying for your overhead, utilities, and expenses, you're paying for a rent payment somewhere, but then also whatever extra money you come up with, a few extra dollars, you have to pay that debt back. So if you went to like the Small Business Administration or you got a small business loan, now whatever cash flow you do have coming in is going right back out. It's like, like you said earlier, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. So you're constantly having this like avalanche, a mountain of debt that you're having to climb out from under. And all the while, if you have a bad month in sales, nobody cares. Your employees still have to get paid. The water and light bill company, they're not going to say, "Oh, well, Shane, you had a bad month in sales. We were going to charge you $200 for a light bill, but now it's only going to be 50." Like they're not going to work with you. And you still have to pay your employees. You still have your expenses. If you are renting, like let's say you have a commercial lease somewhere, or you're in like a little strip mall area, that still has to be paid as well. So you have to generate enough revenue to cover your expenses. And the good thing is, on our niche, in our model with selling on e-commerce, you sort of have an advantage. So if you're in a situation and you're starting off and you have no debt, right? You're not having to pay anybody back. Your cost of goods is nominal, is very minimal. You have 0 employees, and you don't have any extra overhead expenses because you're working out of your house. So your overhead expenses is expenses that you would have to live anyways. So whatever your water or lights or rent or whatever your normal expenses are, that's your overhead operating expenses because you're working out of your house. So that's kind of gonna give you a leg up on everybody else.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I mean let's face it. So I believe it was last year, for every dollar that was spent on the internet, Amazon, 50 cents was spent on Amazon. And if you look at and you break it down, like break down retail in general, if you own a small business, you should be selling online. Like as a small business owner, you have to go where the customers are. You don't have to make that decision, but you should be. I mean, if you're a coffee shop, sell your coffee products online, sell your coffee beans online. Because if you don't, I mean, realistically, you are just losing out on a lot of customers.
Yeah, you have to go where your customers are, and you have to go where the traffic is, where all the customers are going to be. But what if you're like a small business shop and you're a barber shop, or let's say you're a nail salon? Like you're kind of screwed at that point because you're only dependent on foot traffic coming in. So unless you do something to kind of draw foot traffic in, give them a reason to leave their house, because a lot of people, I can order 99% of the products that I need on eBay or Amazon with a couple clicks on my cell phone and have it delivered to my front door. What incentive do I have to go to some of these brick and mortar locations?
Right. And there is no incentive. I mean, realistically, the only incentive there is, the only reason. So when I worked at Target for 4 years. Target sends you to Target Business College, and it's 9 weeks in Chicago at one of their at one of their corporate offices in Chicago. Like their main corporate offices, obviously it's like in Minnesota or it's, Minneapolis or whatever. But they send you to this business college, and the one thing they teach you is the only reason that customers come into a store is because of the guest service. Like you give people service, they like the service. The only other perk that customer has from walking into a brick and mortar is strictly that they get the item right then and there. That's it.
Yeah, and you got to think. I mean, if we were talking about earlier, the '90s business model or early 2000s, talking about like 1998, 2000,
Mhm.
2002, 2005. Now a lot of these brick and mortars just walk by a mall, drive by,
Mhm.
and 2/3 of these big super malls are going out of business. When I was a young kid, like I said, back
Mhm.
in 1998, 2000, it was packed. You wanted to go there, they had the food court, they had all the shopping malls there where you could get if you wanted to go look for hats or sneakers or whatever you
Mhm.
wanted, they had all these different shops there. But now it's like a ghost town. There's a few people there walking to get exercise. They may have a few
Mhm.
food courts there, but as far as the foot traffic has died down tremendously.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, a lot of that's just consumer behavior change. When consumer behavior changes, then you got to really look at that. And that's like one of the best things that I'm really good at is literally spotting trends. Like from selling on Amazon, like I got on a lot of bolos no one knew anything about in the last couple of years and made a lot of money. And it's all about spotting trends. So when you're like spotting the consumer trends, going a different way, and obviously it's going to more online now, and then that's probably going to be a problem for those stores.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing. Earlier we said a number one reason why small businesses fail is
Mhm.
because the cash flow. So that's probably going to be one of the main reasons as well if you're an e-commerce seller. So if you're selling on eBay right now, and you're not generating sales, that's going to be you're just going to be a problem. So what advice or suggestions or recommendations do you have, Shane, that would help them out if they don't want to fall and be a statistic, be the 60% of people that are losing money or breaking even? Like what should we do differently as an e-commerce seller so we can be profitable? Because that's
Well,
that's the whole goal.
yeah, I mean, if you're looking at eBay, and I'll give one for eBay and I'll give one for Amazon. My take on eBay is that like if you have 500 to 1,000 listings and you're not selling hardly anything, look at the listings and look at the titles, look at the sizes, look and see how many required item specifics you have and non-required item specifics you have. And if you kind of fix that listing a little bit, it has a very good chance of selling. Sometimes stuff just don't sell very quickly. And if you're listing a lot of clothing is fairly long tail. Most of it is. There is some fast pieces, but clothing is fairly long tail. So that's one thing. On the Amazon side, realistically, if you're not selling anything, then you just bought badly because Amazon works off a ranking system. And if you sell on there, you know. And if you're not selling nothing, that means either you bought a bad product or that means that the price has tanked below what your minimum price is, and you're not going to sell that until that price comes back up. So,
Yeah, there are some things you can do on eBay. I'm not going to really comment about Amazon because I'm not selling
yeah.
on Amazon at the moment, but there are things on eBay that you can do. You can be listing more items. You
Mhm.
can, you could run a sale on your store. You could maybe send out offers to watchers.
Mhm.
There's other things that you can do on your store to kind of help stimulate sales. But the thing is like I would focus a lot more on just listing more
Mhm.
items. Like that's like the main thing that I would focus on. All the other stuff is kind of
Yep.
tertiary. I don't know if that's the correct word, but it's kind of like if I have a video game, let's say for sale for $25, if I send a guy an offer of
Mhm.
23, $24, like I'm still like trying to get this person's attention about that item. But it's like if earlier we were talking about sell-through rates in different categories, how clothing
Mhm.
has a slower sell-through rate. So if you have that item and it's like, okay, the demand for that particular item is only going to be this much, like you're going to have to find other inventory that you can put in your store that's going to have a higher sell-through rate, that's going to have a higher demand. So it's kind of like if I pick up a shirt and dust the dirt off of this shirt and shake it up and change the photos, change the
Mhm.
design of it or whatever, change the title of the description and relist it, like it's still the same shirt.
Yeah.
It's like all you did is knock the dust off of it. So if you can just focus a lot of your attention on just listing more items,
Mhm.
and I think that's going to probably help because it's what it's going to do. It's going to trigger the eBay algorithm and it's going to notice that you've been listing more items and it should generate more sales, man. Usually 9 times out of 10, when I'm sitting here and I'm cranking out listings, I'll look down and you've got to sell, because a lot of
Yeah.
times stuff will just start selling naturally as you're listing items.
Yeah, I think eBay really pulls off of like if your store is active. So I mean, are you selling items? Are you listing items? Are you responding to questions that buyers have? Because yeah, I mean, there's a lot of metrics I think that eBay really measures. And if you're not like, here's the thing, if you're not shipping items out on time, if you're not doing the stuff eBay wants you to do, then why would they give you more sales? They wouldn't. So that's the thing is like, hey, you got to figure out like if you do have quite a few items online and you're not selling anything, you need to figure out why. And realistically, if you don't have very much, online, then more than likely you just need to list more.
That's true. So a couple other things that I wanted to talk about real quick while we got you on,
Mhm.
Shane, is that we're talking about small businesses. Shane, we were talking about before we shot the video. Shane's in the process next week of closing in and buying a commercial building. So talk a
Mhm.
little bit about what your strategy is, because you're going to be kind of integrating having a brick and mortar store and plus having an online presence selling on eBay and Amazon. So talk a little bit about what your business strategy is and your business model, and maybe it'll help give other people ideas of things that they could do.
Realistically, when I got the building, like my goal was to scale the business. Some people like you got to ask yourself when you first start reselling, do you want to scale the business and make a lot of money, or do you want to just make what you need and just kind of make a little extra? And some people don't want the headache. Everybody's different. And so for me, I wanted to scale the business. And so I got, I'm closing on a commercial building next week. And I've actually gotten this question on Instagram from a few people, and they're like, "Hey, are you opening an antique shop or a store?" I'm like, "No, it's just going to be a warehouse because I am completely tapped out on space. Like I just have no more space." So for me, my business model, like I am focusing on eBay right now, and for me, it would be, basically I'm going to try to do as many listings as possible. I'm probably looking at like 50 plus a day. But I'm also going to actually have the space to be able to merchant fulfill more on Amazon. So instead of doing FBA, I would do more merchant fulfilled. And I think that's really going to grow my Amazon store as well, because realistically, like, people that sell on Amazon, they know a lot of the issues that Amazon's been having this year. And for the most part, it's just going to give me way more room to list, more room to move around, more room to ship. And so, I'm really going to hone in on just getting as many listings up on eBay as possible.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to focus on as well. And I think that if you do that and you have a larger selection and like there's really two business models on eBay. There's people that are trying to, maybe it's not that they're trying to list less items, it's just that they're looking for higher ticket items. So if you're one of those people and you're looking for 150 to $200 items, like for example, I know some resellers and they'll go to Ross or Marshalls and they'll go buy, let's say they'll go buy a new pair of cleats like this for $20, and then they'll turn around and sell it back on
Yeah.
eBay for 100, 120, 150, $200 for these pair of shoes they picked up at Ross to try to turn around and resell them. So it's not that they're not like opposed to saying I don't want to have more than 1,000 items listed. It's just that when your cost of goods is 20, 30, $40 for a pair of shoes to resell on eBay, and my cost of goods is a quarter or 50 cents, I can afford to go buy and list 20 items or 40 items where that same $20 you have tied up in one pair of shoes that you paid $20 for that you're trying to sell for 100. So you can either try to sell a large high velocity of items. That's what I'm trying to do, is sell a lot of different items, or you can sell less items, but they're higher ticket items, right?
Yeah, and I do a little bit of both. Like I do some lower end items, some medium items, and some high end items. Like I'll give you an example. I was bidding on this auction last night, and I spent $6,000 on the online auction, and it had all of these servo units. Well, I looked them up. I got 16 of them and they sell anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 a piece, and I got 16 of them, so that's 30 some $1,000 ish. So if I spend 6 and I sell 30, and let's say the shipping, they're fairly small, so shipping's going to be low, like it's going to be a slam dunk. I can still offer those kind of items and then still list lower end items. Like I do a little bit of both, but a lot of people, like there's a lot of people that just list clothing and they kill it, and they're selling $15 to $25 pieces of clothing because they are just selling volume. I do a little bit of both. I like selling high end items and I like selling volume. It's kind of a weird situation, but if you looked at my eBay store, you'd be like, this is kind of crazy. Like I have a little bit of everything.
I'm trying to focus on having repeat customers that come back every week and buy something out of my store every week. And then like yesterday I had this customer and he bought 5 items out of my eBay store. So that's to awesome. Me, it's like I'm able to pull. Yeah, but it's only because I have a lot of different items listed. If I only had 100 or 500 items listed, the guy probably wouldn't have bought like 5 items or whatever at once. No. And so when I'm pulling the items and pull the orders, it's easy for me to be like, okay, I'm putting in this, on this big padded envelope, and I have 5 items and I'm boxing up and shipping out to one customer. So even though maybe some of the items may only been a $10, $15, $20 item, well, I had one guy that bought 5 of them. So it's very easy for me to ship. I just put them all in the padded envelope. I'm going to put, seal it up, put a shipping label on it, drop it in the mailbox, and I have one guy that bought 5 different items at once. So I think that could be important as far as that goes. And another thing I wanted to touch on, Shane, I had somebody on my live stream the other day, and he says that he wanted to quit his job and become a full-time reseller. So, it was like I support you guys and whatever you want to do, but it's like sometimes when you're in a situation and you have a wife and you have 2, 3 kids to take care of, and you have a stable job and you have health insurance, you have benefits, you have 401k, you have a steady paycheck coming in every week. And I just don't want you guys to be struggling. I don't want it to be 60 days, 90 days later, and you're like, well, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to, like, I got to eat. I got to pay my light bill. I have expenses and stuff that I have to pay. And what talk a little bit about what your journey was like for you becoming a full-time reseller, Shane. Like, what was that like for you?
I mean, honestly, it was really rough. I mean, I spent, at least a good solid 8-9 years of hardcore reselling before I even went full-time. Like, and we're talking like listing on eBay till 2-3 in the morning and getting up at 7 a.m. for work. That kind of stuff, like getting no sleep and, working all weekend on your business as you did your Monday through Friday or whatever. And so realistically, anybody, like I've had people that inbox me or message me and they're like, hey, I'm new to reselling. I want to quit my job in like 3 months. And I'm like, listen, don't quit your job until you have to. Don't quit your job until you feel like you're stable, because it's feast or famine. And there's a lot of famine going on if you don't have money to buy stuff. Like that's the main problem I think newer resellers make, is they go full-time too early and then they spend their money on their bills. And then when you are like maybe $100 or maybe $200-$300 in your account, what are you going to buy? You're going to have to go to like the Goodwill bins and sit there all day and search for them. Like you can't buy a lot of stuff. And sometimes it takes a lot of items to sell to pay your bills. Sometimes it takes a lot of items. So it was really rough for me, but I kind of waited till I had about a year of salary saved up in my bank account. And that's a little bit of a cushion. If you have a bad month, you have a whole year of salary saved up. It's fine. You're okay.
Yeah, Shane, it's like we talked about a week or so ago. It's easy to just be like, when you have a full-time job and you have a guaranteed paycheck coming in every Friday, reselling to me is easier because you're in the back of your mind, you're not really worried about, cost of goods. You're not really thinking about, okay, I need to have $2,000 set aside at the end of the month to take this capital to go buy more inventory. Because like you said, let's say you made $5,000 this month in sales on eBay. You paid all your bills, you buy your groceries, everything is great, except one problem. Now you don't have any more inventory to sell the following month coming up. Let's say you're at the end of September and the next month of October is coming up. well, how much money do you have set aside to go reinvest to buy more inventory for your store? Because before it was like you're almost like on autopilot because you had this guaranteed check coming in every week on Friday. Now all of a sudden that stopped. And so you're like, oh, I'm good. All my bills are paid. Look, see, Shane, I did it. And you're like, no, dude, like you're forgetting something. You have to have cash flow to reinvest. So let's say out of that $5,000, let's say you have to take 1,500 or 2,000 of that, and you have to have capital to reinvest to buy more inventory to kind of keep things flowing, right?
Yep. And that's the whole point about scaling it up. I mean, if you're not going to scale, then you need to set something up to where you need to know exactly how much money you need to reinvest, and you need to know exactly how much money you need for bills. You need to figure those two numbers up, because, if you're trying to scale this up and you're saying, well, I'm selling, $7,000 a month right now on eBay, and I want to scale it up. Well, you're going to have to buy more product, which means if you're selling 7, and let's say you're spending a couple grand or a few grand to sell 7, then you need to double what you're buying. So you need to spend 5,000 or 6,000.
Yeah, and it's going to be hard to do that if you did 7,000 in sales, and now you're saying I got to take 5,000 of that and buy more inventory. I didn't be like, okay, well, what am I going to eat? Like, I got to have stuff to pay my bills.
Yep.
But yeah, so we've been running for about a half hour, Shane. I just wanted to kind of highlight that people think that it's easy. Like, hey, I'm going to open up this small business, whether you're selling on eBay or Amazon or Mercari. You think you're going to be bringing in all this cash flow, and in reality, that may not be the case. Like I said, you've already listen. Regardless of how many years of experience you guys have, regardless of how many college degrees you have, regardless of, oh, I'm good, I've been reselling for a while. Like, you need to understand, statistically speaking, you have a 60% chance of either losing money or breaking even. And that's regardless if you're having a nail salon, a coffee shop, a bakery, whatever it is, you already have statistically 60 people. So if there's 100 people in the room, 60 of those people are either breaking even or losing money. So to me, if you're breaking even and losing money, that means you're not a successful business, right? So you can sit here and say, I've got experience, I've got this or that. But realistically, like what do you have? Like, what's going to give you a competitive advantage in the marketplace? Because everybody's trying to win the Super Bowl. Everybody's trying to win the NBA Finals. Like, what are you doing to kind of help set yourself apart? Do you have any final thoughts or anything else that you would like to add, Shane, before we let you go?
Yeah. Here's the thing is, the reason I kind of put going full-time reselling off so far is because I just wasn't ready. And you have to know when you're not ready and when you are ready. And realistically, here's the thing. You cannot, go full-time with no inventory buildup or no listings, 10 listings up on eBay. Like, you got to take time to build it up. And, honestly, like, I tell people, hey, I'm ready to go full time. Should I? And I say, no. Like, you got a year's salary saved up? Don't. It's tough. I mean, there's been days I've been sitting here and I'm like, what am I doing? And you just have to rationalize it in your head and figure it out. So thanks for tuning in, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, just two things that I wanted to add real quick is that, Shane talked about earlier is that if you only have XYZ number of dollars coming in every month, with brick and mortar businesses, they can't reduce their expenses. They have to pay their employees. They have to all these overhead expenses. But you, as a sole proprietor, as an individual, what can you do to reduce your expenses? Can you get out of debt? Can you pay off your credit card bill? Can you pay your car loan off? Can you do that? Can you live below your means and reduce your expenses? So maybe like where I live at, instead of me going out and paying $2,000 a month in rent, maybe I'll go get a place where my rent's $400 a month. Maybe instead of driving this brand new Escalade or a brand new Camaro or Corvette, maybe I drive a 20-year-old Toyota Camry, and it still gets me from point A to point B just the same, but I don't have this $500 a month car payment hanging over my head every month where I'm like, okay, yeah, I made $500 in sales, but that $500 in sales just went to pay my car payment. That didn't buy my groceries. That didn't pay my water bill. That didn't pay my light bill. That just went to paying a car payment. So if there's any little thing that you guys can do where you can sit down and figure out ways where you can reduce your overhead monthly expenses, that's going to definitely help you out more immensely than what you realize. And now you have capital. Instead of paying that $500 a month car payment, now you can take that capital and go use it to buy inventory for your business. That's what I wanted to say.
Yep.
Anyway, so this is going to be the end of part 7. Go jump and follow Shane, the Rise and Grind Picker. We're going to record part 8 on his channel, and we're going to have a great time. So go by and hang out with him. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.
See ya.